scary.
Hello and welcome. I am Sir Shudder. Before we begin, if you enjoy my content, please like and subscribe and hit the notifications icon to see when I've done another video. I have another couple of creepy tales for you today, so sit back, relax and enjoy. The long-haired lady behind the bike. I heard this story from my brother when he was in high school. One day, his friend Kaysan was returning home from club practice with one of the junior members. It was just before 10 p.m. We live in the countryside, so there weren't many nearby houses. Nothing but the light from the street lamps along the coastline. With his feet on his friend's bike from behind, he helped push him up a large hill with his moped. Then he noticed it, something heavy on the back of his bike, like someone was sitting there. He looked in the mirror and saw a girl with long hair sitting right behind him. Her clothes were splattered with blood and her hair was a mess. It seemed she would look up at any moment, so Kaysan quickly averted his eyes and focused on what was directly in front of him. I can't let her know. I know she's there. We mustn't lock eyes, he thought, and continued to look straight ahead. But he could feel her looking right at him. He kept riding up the hill, refusing to make eye contact with her. Suddenly, the weight from his bike lifted, and trembling, Kaysan checked the mirror. She wasn't there. Relieved, he went to call out to his friend in front, but when he looked, he froze. She was sitting on his luggage carrier. He tried to move his feet that were pushing his friend's bike up the hill, as far away from the girl as he could, and he continued riding without looking forward. Somewhere along the way, she turned to look at him, staring at him, but he refused to let her enter his vision. As they reached the top of the hill, she disappeared. The next day, Kaysan decided to tell his friend about what happened. He thought he would be scared, but he just nodded and was like, well, actually, he had noticed her too. On the way up the hill, he thought it strange that Kaysan was suddenly so quiet, and turned around to see why, when he saw her sitting there behind him. In a panic, he quickly turned back to the front, but he was concerned, so he turned back to look several times, and he could see the girl pressed up against his cheek, with a dreadful expression on her face. He got scared after that, so he refused to look back and focused just on what was ahead, when suddenly his bike felt heavier and he could smell the faint stench of blood. Then he knew she had come for him too. She was muttering something behind him the whole time, but he couldn't make out what she was saying. After a while, the weight lifted and she disappeared. As Kaysan listened to the story, he felt like the girl was haunting him again, and got scared. Although he didn't really know what was going on, he made the decision never to return home alone again. After a few years earlier, an unidentified woman's body washed up on the coastline, and upon hearing the story, I wondered if the girl was still hanging around, and it made me kinda sad. I reached out and touched the notepad by his PC. When I was in university, I had a friend called A. A had amazing grades, was good looking, and had a great personality. He looked a bit like Odigiri Joe. I was just an ugly, gloomy guy, so it was a mystery as to why he wanted to be my friend. Not that I'm happy about it, but people say I look like Muga Sukaji. He was just a really handsome bastard. You would think a guy like him would have a girlfriend and lots of affluent friends, but for some reason, he was always with me. One day I said to him as a joke, "You're a good-looking guy. Why don't you go hang out with some people cooler than a loner like me?" His face became troubled and he was like, "I feel safe with you though. Besides, you're not a loner if I'm with you anyway." I had no idea what he was saying. A and I met in an occult circle. The group was originally a place we'd go to eat and drink, play some games and so on, but it began to change. They started doing group activities less and less, so we often ended up in each other's places instead, where we'd spend the night after night talking about strange phenomena. Although having said that, it was really more me just talking about the things I knew regarding paranormal phenomena and ghost spots and so on. A would sit there and nod his head as he listened like he was having a ball. This went on for some time before one day I found something shocking at his house. That day A went out to the convenience store to get some cigarettes, and I decided to stay behind. The convenience store was quite a distance away, and while waiting for him I began to think I should have gone along too. I looked around his room. There was really nothing there. He didn't have a TV or a sofa, no games or manga either. There was just a desk. The cushions were sitting on a laptop and some difficult looking books in a bookcase. Are these just cushions really enough for an unpopular guy? I bet his closet is empty as well. Is he hiding something? Not that I'm gonna look or anything. While having these thoughts, my hand reached out to the notebook sitting next to the laptop. I don't know whether he was using it as a notepad, but there were shopping lists, electronic model numbers written on it. I had a quick flick through, but I didn't like looking at the pages and had anything on them. They were all blank, but then suddenly, somewhere around the middle of the notebook, a page covered in letters stood out. "What's this?" I thought, stopping to read what was there. "Ooh, die, 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 die. Hurry up and die, 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 die." After that, there were a lot of old kanji. I couldn't understand or read. Maybe some kind of sutra. The page was black with letters. The next page was the same. Why was this happening to A? He was so gentle, but what shocked me even more was that O was A's name. It felt like I'd seen something I shouldn't have, so I quickly put the notepad back and pretended to sleep until A returned. There was nothing different about him when he did, and when I got up, the notepad had been put away. He had laughed and asked, "Were you sleeping the whole time? You didn't use the computer or anything? You think I want to look at all your hidden goodies? Nah, there's nothing to do in your place, so I just slept the whole time," I replied without mentioning anything about the notepad. Upon hearing that, A just laughed and had a smoke. After that, there wasn't anything particularly different about A. Just like always, we'd do our circle activities on our own, drinking and eating and talking about strange things. At home, but half a year later, at the start of summer vacation, A suddenly died. It didn't seem like a suicide. It was apparently a heart attack. I was the one who found him. Even though we'd arranged to meet at his place, he wasn't answering the phone or the doorbell. We had keys made for each other's places in the case of an emergency, so I opened the door and went inside. Despite his shoes being at the entrance, there was no response when I called out. I walked through his empty apartment and he was just sitting there on his cushion, not breathing. He looked like he was just taking a nap. When I realised he was dead, I was dumbfounded. I just cried. I called his parents, the police, and an ambulance after a bit. It felt like I'd lost everything. I don't really have much memory of what happened afterwards. All I remember is that his family asked me if I knew anything about his private affairs, his diary, his site, accounts, etc., because they couldn't find anything at all. I said that I thought he killed himself. He cursed himself, you see. He liked those sorts of things, curses, weird religious rites, etc. A few years later, After A died, I began to realise why A never had any friends outside of me. Never made a girlfriend or collected anything at home. I never found out exactly how or why he died though. I forgot to mention it, but of course, we never found the notebook. I wonder whose handwriting was in it. Two shrines. This happened when I was an elementary school student. I think it was a real supernatural phenomenon. I was a member of the Boy Scouts and an elementary school student. Boy Scouts are a group that often goes camping and does various other outdoor activities. One day during the summer holidays, we went for a 10-kilometre hike on the outskirts of our hometown. We decided on several checkpoints at various places, the hiking route. We made a small shrine on the corner of the residential area at a checkpoint, but when we actually went walking and arrived at the spot, there were two shrines there. On either side of the crossroads, there were two shrines that looked the same. They were like mirror images of each other. There was only one shrine gate mark on the map, so I thought it was kind of strange. In any case, we headed for the shrine that matched up with the one that was marked on the map and took a break. The shrine grounds had a main hall and one smaller building. There was absolutely nothing out of the ordinary about it. Then our leader, a junior high school student, suggested, "Let's go check out that other shrine." We were all intrigued by it, so there were no objections. We noticed something strange as soon as we passed under the shrine gate. It smelt fishy. The smell of rotting fish pierced our nostrils. Everyone seemed to notice it. They screwed up their faces and were looking around for the source of the smell. I took a quick look around. It was exactly the same as the other shrine. On closer inspection, however, I noticed the sliding door to the main hall was slightly ajar. I thought there might be something dangerous inside, so I was ready to leave, but our leader went straight up to the stone path towards it. "You guys wait here." As he said that, he disappeared inside. We waited several minutes, but he didn't return. We couldn't wait any longer, so we decided to go see where he was. As we did, he suddenly jumped out from behind the sliding door and screamed, "Wah!" He laughed at our shock. "Totally worth it," he said. "There was nothing there. The smell's probably from one of the nearby houses' trash or something." That's the type of person this guy was. Just like he said, the main hall was exactly the same as the previous shrine. Nothing out of the ordinary. We tried to look up why there were two shrines exactly the same, but couldn't find anything at the time. But just as we were about to leave, I saw something from the back of the leader's head down his back. It was drenched in water. It was way too much to be sweat, and there was an awful smell coming from it. But I only saw it briefly as we passed through the shrine gate. When we reached the road, the water and the smell were both gone. Neither the leader nor the other members seemed to have noticed it. I figured it was just my imagination, so I didn't say anything. A few days later, our leader went swimming at the beach. He got caught in a rip current and disappeared. His drowned body was found several days later. I didn't have the courage to go see for myself, but according to another of the scouts who went to see the place where he washed up, the body had been rotting in the summer heat and smelled just like an awful fishy smell from the shrine. I later found out that it was the shrine of Kowabana, the guardian deity of seafaring, and there were hundreds of small shrines around the country dedicated to him. So in the end, it really was just a regular shrine, but our leader drowning after visiting the shrine dedicated to the sea couldn't be a coincidence. I couldn't get it out of my mind, so I went one more time to check it out, but when I got there, there was only one single shrine. Did you enjoy that? If you did, if you haven't already, please like and subscribe and hit the notifications icon so you can see when I've done another video. And
I want you to tell all your friends about me.
Until next time, I am Sir Shudder. See you soon. Be safe, be cool.